Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Tuesday, September 26, 9:30 in the morning. I wasn't going to record a behind the scenes video this morning, but I'm currently uploading a video right now from my laptop. And with this laptop, I can't really do two things at once. It doesn't have the power to do that. So I find that when I'm uploading a video to YouTube, I can't be editing the next video because the computer can't do those two things at the same time. And I'm in a little bit of an uncomfortable position right here because for reasons I don't understand, as I've talked about before, my MacBook won't connect to hotel Wi-Fi, but it will connect to one of my smartphones. So I have my phone connected to hotel Wi-Fi, and then I have the laptop connected to my phone through a mobile hotspot. But the connection between my phone and the laptop, it only works when the laptop is sitting on my knees, like on my thighs. So right now I have my laptop sitting here, and the only reason it's sitting here, I don't need it, it's somehow when it's resting here in this exact position, it connects to my phone and the uploading will continue. But if I move the laptop like over here on the bed, it disconnects. And it doesn't matter what angle I put the computer on, if I raise it, like if I recreate this position, but over there, it won't connect to my phone. It's like it has to be touching my body in order for it to connect to my phone, like as if my body is acting as some kind of an antenna. Does that make any sense at all? I have no idea. But anyway, my laptop is sitting here, and it makes me, I have to sit here carefully, and I'm drinking coffee, so I have to be careful. I'm sort of sitting here very rigid, so I'm not disturbing anything, and I don't break the connection between my phone and my laptop. Anyway, there's 20% left of the video to upload. Once that's finished, then I can go back to editing the next video. But for now, I'm kind of stuck. And while I'm stuck, I can talk to you via behind the scenes. And I do have a story to tell from yesterday, quite a funny one. I don't have to tell the whole story, I don't think, because I shot a video yesterday, and in that video, I also tell the story. I recap what's going on. So if I tell the whole story now, it's sort of duplicating, but that's okay. It's a different approach, I suppose. But the story is that I got tricked. Someone played kind of a surprise joke on me, and I didn't see it coming at all. So here I was. I'm here in Port Dickson still. I'm at the Seafront Hotel here in Port Dickson. And my friend Daryl from Kuala Lumpur, he is the mastermind behind the Wander Eats YouTube channel. Daryl contacted me the day before yesterday and said, oh, by the way, if you're going to be at your hotel between 9 and 9:30, I've arranged a surprise for you. Breakfast will be delivered to your hotel. So if you're there between 9 and 9:30, which I always am, I've arranged to have breakfast, some food delivered to your hotel. I was like, wow, that's very nice of him. That's great. Even though I don't often eat breakfast, as I've often said, I don't generally have breakfast in the morning, but if there's an easy breakfast available, I really appreciate it. Like if this hotel offered breakfast every morning, I'd probably go have something. It is nice to start the day with some food. So the fact that Daryl, he reached out to some friends of his, I guess, or a restaurant that he knew about here in the Port Dickson area and arranged for them to deliver breakfast in the morning for me. That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. So that's what happened. And then I got a message from Daryl saying, oh, plans had changed a little bit. The food isn't going to be delivered here. Someone is going to come pick me up and then take me out for breakfast, going to take me to this restaurant. And he's talking about, I know, you know, Daryl, he's in the food industry for his YouTube channel. He reviews restaurants. He's been to Port Dickson many times himself, as far as I can make out, with his family. So he knows all the restaurants around here, and he probably knows the people that run the restaurants. So he reached out to one of his contacts here, and I guess someone from that restaurant, Daryl didn't tell me what kind of food it was. I assumed it was like a local specialty, something that's interesting, and this friend of his was going to come get me. They're going to drive here, pick me up, and then take me out somewhere for a meal. And then as soon as I got that message from Daryl, my heart sank a little bit. It was like, I didn't really want to do that. Having food delivered here, that's amazing. But now, someone coming to get me early in the morning and then taking me out somewhere, and this friend probably was expecting me to be a certain type of person. Daryl says, oh yeah, I've got this friend from Canada. He's a YouTuber. He's really interested in Malaysia and Malaysian food. He wants to come to your restaurant, and you pick him up and take him there. So it seemed like it was turning into a big deal. And then in the same message, Daryl said, yeah, you can fire up your GoPro, get your GoPro ready. And I was thinking, I've got so many videos from Sumatra that I'm working on that I didn't really want to shoot new video here in Port Dickson because I don't have the time to edit it. So now this gesture from Daryl, very generous on his part, he's really doing something nice for me, arranged for a friend of his from probably a fancy restaurant to come pick me up, take me to the restaurant, treat me to a wonderful meal, and then in the message Daryl said, and they'll arrange, to have you driven back to your hotel afterwards, but in the meantime, you can hang out down by the ocean, enjoy the coastline, things like that. So I was sort of heaving a little bit of a sigh, going, I was tired that day. I wasn't in a great mood. I had so much work to do, and I was kind of looking forward to getting a good night's sleep, waking up in the morning. I'm going to be rested. I'm going to sit here in my room in comfort, have a cup of coffee, and I was going to dive into my Sumatra videos and start editing like crazy and get a lot of work done. That was my plan. But now I was going to have to go out with some people I didn't know. A stranger's going to come get me, and they're going to treat me to, local Malaysian delicacies. And I'm sort of going to have to pretend that I'm really excited about the food because I'm not really a foodie. And I'm going to have to get all my camera gear ready and go out and film and then edit all that video. And it was sort of like, I wasn't that excited about this whole thing. But as I told Daryl later on, in those situations where I'm not that excited to go out, after it's over, I'm glad I did. So like before it, I may be dreading it to an extent, right? It's like, this is going to be so much work and I'm not really in the mood to do it. But when I do go out and I do it and I have the experience, I'm glad that it happened, right? So even though I was dreading the experience to an extent, I also knew that when, go out and do it and you're actually going to have a good time and you're going to enjoy the experience. So I talked myself into some kind of enthusiasm for this experience. But then during the night, to be honest, I didn't sleep that well because I was thinking about this whole thing in the morning. It was on my mind. I was thinking about it and what was going to happen and how I was going to do it and like, how am I going to film this? Because I don't really have the skills or even the technology to film in a restaurant, in a proper way. Like GoPros aren't really designed for shooting video indoors, and what's the lighting going to be like, and should I bring along an extra microphone, and will the owner of this restaurant, should I put a microphone on him and interview him about the history of his restaurant, and he can tell me about the food, and should I go into the kitchen and ask questions about the food preparation? It was like, it seemed like a whole lot of work. And then throughout the night, I couldn't really sleep that well because I was thinking so much about this experience coming up in the morning. So this was all going on. And then in the morning, I'm here in my room and I'm getting, getting ready for this person to come pick me up. And then I get a message from Daryl. Oh, they're on their way. They're going to be there in 5 minutes. And I was prepared, but I wasn't 100% ready to go yet. So I was like, oh, 5 minutes. That was earlier than I was expecting. So it's like, okay. And I jump up and I throw on my t-shirt and I pull on a pair of shorts and I grab the GoPro and, I'm getting ready to head out the door. I head out the front door of the hotel, and what do I see? If you're smarter than me, you know what I'm going to see. But I was not expecting it at all. I step outside the front door, I look around, and what do I see? Daryl. Daryl in his car. I recognized his car almost instantly, and it was like, he got me. The whole thing was a setup where Daryl was coming to Port Dickson. He was going to come pick me up, and then he was going to take me out for breakfast. This whole thing with the restaurant, a stranger picking me up, all of that was a complete setup. And Daryl drove all the way down from KL. It's like an hour-and-a-half drive, something like that. And it was the weather was terrible, pouring rain on his ride here, as he told me. And the weather here was not that great. It was kind of cloudy and overcast. But Daryl went to all that effort to come all the way down here to see me and then take me out for a good meal. Anyway, it was really funny. Neither of us had this on video. Daryl had his cameras running. I had my camera ready to go, but when I stepped out the front door of the hotel, I didn't have my GoPro on yet. So I hadn't started filming, and Daryl had his camera running, but it wasn't aiming at the hotel. It was just inside his car. So neither of us have this on video. But it was kind of funny because I stepped out of the front door of the hotel. I turned and I saw Daryl sitting in his car, and I just pretended to just turn around and go back into the hotel. It was like, okay, I can't, this is too much. I can't deal with this big surprise. It's too much for me to handle. I'm just going to go back to bed, So I saw Daryl in his car, and I was like, oh no, I can't handle this. And I turned around and I started going right back into the hotel. So that was my honest reaction to this surprise. I was completely taken by surprise. I had no idea this is what was going on. I suppose I should have been able to figure it out because it is like something Daryl would do, but he completely took me by surprise. And yeah, that was pretty funny. But that moment of the actual surprise, neither of us got it on video. We're both long-term YouTubers filming everything in our lives, and yet that key moment of this surprise, neither of us got it on video, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, I was very, very surprised. Yeah. Anyway, then yeah, we went out for breakfast, went out for coffee, went out for lunch, had a great day, and Daryl shot a video about the whole day. And I shot a video about the whole day too. We kind of had dueling cameras going on all day long. Daryl just bought a DJI Action 4 camera. He had the DJI Action 3, and then the 4 came out, and it seemed like it was a significant upgrade from the 3, the larger sensor, that whole thing. So he sold his 3 and then upgraded to the 4, and yesterday was a chance for him, to really put it through its paces, to use the camera during the day. And of course, he and I, over breakfast, were like totally geeking out. I was definitely geeking out. I'm taking his Action 4 and comparing it to my GoPro Hero 9, the physical design, all the features, the field of view, just going crazy, comparing the two cameras. And then, yeah, Daryl and I never run out of things to talk about, or at least I never run out of stories to tell, talking to Daryl. And I hadn't seen him for like 2.5 months since I went to Sumatra. And so, yeah, got to learn everything that Daryl's been doing since in those 2 months. And then, yeah, we really spent a good day together. So he's already finished. He took all the video he shot and he edited it last night, and he's already done. And I don't know when I'm going to do it, because I run into this situation quite often where I have maybe 10 videos from Sumatra that I haven't finished editing. And that's going to take me, I don't know, weeks to finish, to be honest. And then after all of that, then I can post videos from Malaysia, or I can edit the video from yesterday right now. I can do that today, but then it's going to interrupt the timeline. You know what I mean? It's like, here are videos in Sumatra, and then suddenly video from Malaysia, then videos from Sumatra. You know, I get caught in this all the time because I shoot way too much video, and it takes me way too long to edit it afterwards, and then I fall behind, and then the whole timeline of my life gets out of whack with YouTube, and it becomes this big thing. It's probably not as big a deal as I think it is, but in my head it feels like everything is now confused. You know, I don't know what to do in terms of video, but who knows? Maybe I'll edit the video and post it anyway because it's fresh in my mind. Or yeah, maybe I will do that. We'll see. We'll see. Because Daryl had this idea that we could post our videos at the same time, so that he won't post his until mine is done, and then we can post our videos at the same time. His perspective on the day, and then my perspective on the day. And I'm sure his video will be short and efficient and good, to the point. My video will be long and rambling and try to include everything in the entire day. So it'll be interesting to get the contrast between the two of us. But yeah, that was yesterday. Very good day. I was really happy to see Daryl because, yeah, I'd seen him for 2.5 months. And, you know, I'm here in Port Dickson all by myself. I don't know anybody here. And in general, I'm content that way. I'm a very solitary sort of person, it seems. But at the same time, you know, a good friend of yours shows up. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's a good feeling. Gave me a burst of energy for the day, and in a weird twist, it reminded me that I'm in Malaysia. I talked about this with Daryl yesterday when I first connected with him. This idea that I don't really feel like I'm in Malaysia. I often forget where I am because I'm sitting here in the room, curtains are closed, and I'm editing video from Sumatra day after day after day. And to be honest, it makes me feel like I'm still in Sumatra. And it doesn't occur to me, oh no, you're not in Sumatra anymore, you're in Malaysia. And you know, KL is an hour and a half away. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably find a bus, take me into Kuala Lumpur for the day. I could have gone in to see Daryl myself, hop back on the bus, come back here. You know, it's like, it's only an hour, hour and a half away. But it never even occurred to me to do that because I don't really feel like I'm in Malaysia yet. My body and my brain, no, my brain hasn't caught up with my body. My body is here, but somehow mentally, it doesn't really occur to me that I'm actually in Malaysia and what opportunities that gives me, you know, things that I can do. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of funny. So yeah, that was yesterday. And today is going to be another video editing day. The weather is not great. It had been heavily overcast for a long time now, so I don't feel a lot of inspiration for going out anywhere. I'll probably get on my bike this afternoon. I'll ride into Port Dickson, grab some lunch somewhere in Port Dickson today. Actually, it's that way. I keep pointing that direction, but Port Dickson is that way. But other than that, I'm just going to be editing videos all day and talking about how my video of my day with Daryl is going to be long. Man, oh man. This video that I'm editing from Sumatra, right now, like what I'm doing right now, my editing process is I take all the raw video, like all of it, and I put it into the timeline. And then I splice it all together. So I have like one long video of the entire day, you know, all the video I shot. And on this day in Sumatra, I was in Padang, and my goal was to ride my scooter to the local port. I think it's called Teluk Bayur, something like that. I just knew that there was some sort of a harbor, a port, a few kilometers south of Padang. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what kind of harbor it was. I thought maybe it could be like a fishing harbor. And then it's like, oh, I can go to this fishing harbor and see all the fishing boats, and that'd be really interesting. Or it could be a modern shipping port, like an industrial place. And I just didn't know what it was all about. So I wanted to ride my scooter down there, take a look at the port. That was my goal. And right now, I have 2 hours so far. I'm nowhere near done yet. I have 2 hours and 40 minutes of raw video. I've gotten to 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I haven't even gotten to the port yet. I've left Padang, but I barely made it outside of the town of Padang. I'm nowhere near the port yet, and already I have nearly 3 hours of video. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. So by the time I have my next experience and my next experience in this day, and then I finally get to the port, and then I'm in the port, and then I turn around and come all the way back, I'm probably going to have 4 hours of video from one day, like just a day trip. I woke up in the morning and thought, oh, I'm going to hop on my scooter, ride to the port, look at the port, and that was going to be the subject of the video. And now, as I was going to the port, I stopped off at all these other places and did all these other things, and I'm going to end up with 4 hours of video. And what the heck am I going to do with that? I honestly don't know. So I was thinking about that this morning, and I thought maybe what I'll do is forget about having any kind of video structure, because for me, normally my videos are structured for a day, right? Each video lines up with one day of my life, and I tend to include everything, you know, like waking up, leaving the hotel, getting on the scooter, riding there. Like everything I do, it begins with, you know, the beginning of the day and ends with the end of the day when I ride my scooter back to the hotel. That's when the overall experience is over. And that, for me, is the end of the video. So that's how the video is structured. But if that ends up with 4 hours of video, obviously, you don't want to deal with that. It's not something you should be posting to YouTube. But then if I isolate like one experience, like if I take, maybe I had 10 separate experiences throughout the day, if I just isolate each experience and make a video about that. Like, for example, I went to this lookout point called Gado Gado. It's like Gado Gado Bukit, or Bukit Gado Gado or something. It's a hill outside of Padang, and you can go up to the top of the hill and you get a beautiful view of the coastline. And there are some other interesting things about this place. So that's one thing that I did, and I could isolate my Bukit Gado Gado experience, and it could be 10 minutes long, and I could make a 10-minute video about that. And then I also went to, I stopped for a snack, and I had a little bit of an interaction with some school children there. That was another experience. I could make a 10-minute video about that. And that's more efficient, perhaps even more interesting, but then each moment, each experience, it doesn't have a beginning or an ending. Like, it has no structure. It just sort of starts and then it stops. There's no beginning and there's no ending, because during the day as I'm filming, I'm riding my scooter and I'm talking, and then I stop and have this experience. So there's a lead into the experience, then I have the experience, and then I ride my scooter away from it, and then I talk about that experience, and I relate it to other things that I'm doing throughout the day. So then that's where the flow comes from, because it is part of this arc of the overall day. And then that experience makes sense because it's part of this overall experience. But if I take away the structure of the day, it feels to me like there's nothing left. It just has there's no point to it. It doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, this happened, but like, what, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't have an introduction. It doesn't have a conclusion. It doesn't have a flow. Anyway, I don't quite know what to do with this video right now, but we'll see. It all may work out in the end. Yeah, that's something. Well, the uploading went really quickly for some reason. It was at 80% when I started speaking here, and now it's done. It's at 100%, so it's all finished. But now it's going through the YouTube checking procedure, 25% checking. So I'm going to leave my laptop sitting on my thighs while it finishes. I just don't want to touch it. I don't want to screw anything up. But yeah, such a mystery. Connections for Wi-Fi. I don't really know what's going on, but I can't move right now. I can't move anywhere, or else I'm going to yeah, screw this up. Well, the video is all done uploading and processing and all that kind of thing. So now I'm free. I'm free to move around. And I thought I'd move on to the technology portion of behind the scenes, the Planet Doug Technology Corner. And this kind of relates to my experience yesterday with Daryl, because one thing about Daryl, he knows where to get stuff. Or more to the point, I don't know where to get stuff. It's always the case. I was in KL a long time ago looking for sandals, for example, and I swear I went to every store in the city. I was like a shopping machine, and I could not find sandals anywhere. And then I met up with Daryl one day at a shopping mall, and he took me into the shoe store, the very first one we saw. I met Daryl, and he says, oh, look at that place. We walked into the store, and they had sandals everywhere. And then now, after I met Daryl, every store I went into had sandals. And yet, up until that point, I hadn't seen them anywhere. So I don't know what happened. But I've had a similar experience with a sewing kit. As I told Daryl, I'm always sewing things. Like I repair things, like things get torn in my bags or backpacks or shirts or pants, whatever, and I sew them. I don't know how to sew. I'm not a skilled seamstress or anything like that. But I mean, I can put some thread in place and close a gap. You know, it looks horrible, but it gets the job done. So I do that, but I also modify a lot of things. Like a lot of my gear, I want to have a certain type of bag with a certain type of pocket. I want to put two things together, and then I often sew things together. And I do a lot of sewing of Velcro, because I like attaching things together. And then you buy Velcro, like you can buy strips of Velcro, and then you can, you know, take it apart and you put one piece of Velcro here and you sew it on, put other Velcro on the other thing, and then you can stick them together and then peel them apart, you know. But to do that, you need a sewing kit, and all of my previous sewing kit, all my needles have either gotten lost or were worn out. You know how you use needles to puncture super glue and stuff like that, and you get super glue all over the needle, and you can't clean it off properly, and that needle becomes useless for sewing. Anyway, over a long period of time, I broke all of my needles, so I needed a new sewing kit, and for whatever reason I just couldn't find them anywhere. I go into store after store after store, and you'd think, well, obviously, like, they're common items, you know, sewing kits, but I couldn't find them anywhere. I just could not find them anywhere. And yesterday Daryl is here, and I'm thinking, yes, Daryl is here, and I'm pretty sure that if I ask Daryl, he'll take me to one store, the very first store we'll go into, they'll have sewing kits. And that's exactly what happened. We went to this big, super huge store, and they had like a household goods department, whatever, and then there was like a display, had 7 or 8 different sewing kits. And to be honest, none of them were really what I was looking for. Yeah, I have very specific needs and desires for most things, and these sewing kits were all really cheap, you know, like bargain basement, and they cost next to nothing, and I don't really understand that. So for example, this is what I ended up buying. It's not a full sewing kit, like there's no thread and scissors, and you know, it isn't a full package, but that I didn't really need the whole package. All I needed were sewing needles. And this is nothing but needles, but the crazy thing is it has 60 needles. I don't know who needs 60 needles, but anyway, 60 needles for 2.5 ringgit, which is like 50 cents. So if you do the math, how good quality can they be? Like if you're getting 60 needles, the quality for 50 cents, you're not talking about high quality needles. And that does have an effect, because I need a really sharp point on the needles, and with cheap needles, that point actually gets worn out very quickly, and it doesn't go through the material as easily, doesn't feel as smooth. It's just doesn't feel good to work with, these cheap. But this was all I could find. But then also, all of these sewing kits have these tiny, tiny needles. I don't know why they're so small. I mean, look at these things. They're microscopic. And this is what most sewing kits have, like household goods sewing kits. And they're just way too small. I can't work with these. There's no way I'm even getting thread through the little hole there. I can't see them. I need larger needles, because I'm often I'm sewing onto thick material, like leather or vinyl, thick, camera bags, knapsacks, that kind of material. And these tiny needles are useless for that. But there was one kit there that had this one that said you get 60 silver eye needles. I guess these are silver eye needles, and free 5 jumbo. So actually it's 65 total. So you actually get jumbo needles. And these are the only ones I needed. I needed big ones. So now I have 5 jumbo needles. But anyway, whether they end up lasting a long time or whether they end up being useful or not, I do now have needles. And just to give an example of some of the things that I do, since this is Planet Doug's Technology Corner, this is my pannier bag that I have. And this one came with this bag that attaches by Velcro. So it's designed to click, go into place here with Velcro, and then you can, peel it off and take it away. So, it's just one bag with a zipper, and that's part of the design of this pannier bag. But I used to have the same bag, but an older model, this is from a company in Canada called Arkel. And I love these bags because they're modular, things, you can remove things, move things around. It has tons and tons of pockets. So there's pocket here, pocket here, pocket here, removable pocket here. Just has a lot of compartments and pockets, which is how I like to organize my life. So anyway, I like these bags, and I bought a set of these bags back in 1999. And then they got, I used them for over 20 years, and I wanted to upgrade to the newest model because my old ones were getting worn out. And then I bought the new ones, and it turns out that there were some design changes that I didn't know about. There's small changes, but in my world, a small change makes a big difference, because I like things to be a certain way. So in this case, I'll show you my old my old pannier bags, the ones like this that I had before. They were completely worn out. They really couldn't be used anymore. So I was basically just throwing them away. But before I threw them away, I cut off a lot of the pockets, because the pockets were still in relatively good condition and they still had usable zippers, and I could use them in other situations. And one of the things I cut off, or that I kept, was this pocket from my old one. And there's a big difference between them. Actually, there's two levels to this, which always amuses me. That there will be some piece of technology, some piece of equipment, and it will have a problem. And then in the new version of whatever that thing is, they will fix that problem, but then they'll make another change that introduces a new problem. So they got rid of the old problem, but then they went too far, in my opinion, and then they ruined what was good about the original product. So this is the original bag right here that would fit on the front of my old pannier bag. And if you open it, you'll notice but there are two. It flops down and there's two compartments, one here and one here, two zippers and two compartments. And there's a slit here, like a slit compartment, and then a zippered compartment and a zippered compartment, and then the whole thing folds up. So, by the way, this Velcro, I put that on with my old sewing kit because the original Velcro wore out. It didn't work anymore after 20 years. So I cut off the old Velcro and I sewed new Velcro in place. That's the kind of thing I do with my sewing kit. But anyway, this is the old design right here. And it had a problem because back in those days, everybody used paper maps. Like, you know, those maps you could get from like if you went to the tourism office in any country, they give you a map of the country and they wouldn't quite fit. Like, this was designed for papers and maps. Like, this was supposed to be a map case, but it wasn't wide enough. So when you tried to put a map in here, the maps were too long to fit in, and all these maps that I would get from tourism departments, I would end up having to cut them. Like, I cut off the top and the bottom and try to get them narrower and narrower so that they would actually fit. So here was a map compartment, and yet it wasn't wide enough for the maps to fit. And that just drove me crazy. It was like, for me, it was such a weird design mistake for them to make. So that's the old one. Cue the new bag, and look at this. It's wider. The new one is significantly longer in this direction. So now you could fit maps in here quite easily, but of course, nobody uses maps anymore, right? Who has a paper map? It's very rare. So even though paper maps fit this new design, I don't even have any paper maps. I don't use paper maps anymore. Plus, if you open up this top flap, there's only one now. There's only one compartment, and then there's no slit compartment anymore. So, you know, it's like they fixed the problem with the width. It's now wide enough, which I like, but they took away all the other features that I liked. So they took away the second bag and they took away the slit compartment. So it's sort of like, they fixed one problem, but that problem didn't need fixing anymore. But then they changed the design that it's less useful, you know? Anyway, so what I was thinking about doing was removing this from this bag and replacing it with the old one. So I'll just take my old one and put it on here. But unfortunately, the Velcro is reversed. Like, you know how Velcro has two sides to it? The old design is the opposite of the new design. So the Velcro on this bag doesn't match up with the Velcro on this bag. So what I have to do is take a strip of Velcro like this and sew it onto the top of this bag. If I sew that into place, now I will be able to put it here. So that's what I need a sewing kit for. Basically, I have to take this strip of Velcro and then sew it along the top of this. And I need a really big needle to get through this material because this is really, it's very thick, very tough material. And I'm gonna have to do a lot of work in order to get Velcro to attach to that. So anyway, long story just to explain why I need a sewing kit with a little bit of a random thought about design. It always drives me crazy when companies do that because they release, you know, the new version of the GoPro, for example, and they add all these new features that everybody's excited about the new features, but then it turns out they took away other features at the same time. It's like, well, why did you do that? I mean, it's great that you added the new thing, but why take away the old thing? You know, leave the good things and just add new good things. Anyway, I haven't decided yet whether it's worth doing or not. Yeah, we'll see. I think I will add the Velcro. The great thing about this design is that you're not committed. Like, it's not like I'm taking this bag and sewing it onto this bag. I'm just putting Velcro here so that I could use it if I want to, or I can take it off and put this one in place. So I can choose, which one I want to use, and I can figure out over time, like maybe this one actually, I like it better because the bag is a little bit bigger, I think. It's wider, but it also feels a little bit like it's got more volume maybe. But I really love having 2 different compartments plus the slit compartment. I use that all the time, and then I divide everything up properly, and then it just folds up nicely. So anyway, I prefer the old design over the new design, so I may switch them. And to do that, I have to get sewing with my new jumbo needles. So thank you to Daryl for helping me track those down. I remember talking about this before, but since I'm on the topic, for anyone interested in these sorts of things, design and modifications, I can mention it again. Because another design change they made with these bags, again, it really bothered me. The old bag, this whole front panel comes down. That's how these bags work. They're front loading bags. And then on the old bags, on this flap that folds down, there was a big slit pocket right here. And I used it all the time for all kinds of things. I used it, for example, for the lock on my bicycle, a cable lock. This was so convenient to be able to just zip open the top of the bag and slide the lock into this slit compartment right here. And it was like a tiny design feature, but it was so useful because it was so easy to open up the top of the bag and then access items in the slit pocket. It was a really nice feature of the bag. And then the new bag, when I bought it, the first thing I saw when I opened it up was like, oh no, they took away the slit compartment. So I've been planning to add it myself. I'm going to find some material at some point and then just sew it into place here and then make my own slit compartment. Or actually, yeah, there's actually two layers of material here. I could, if I really wanted to, cut the top and separate the 2 layers, and then I make my own slit compartment without adding new material, but that may cause problems. So I'll probably just get some material, put it in here and sew it into place and make my own pocket. And with these new bags, they completely changed the mounting system. So they created this very high-tech quick release system so that when you hook this onto your bike, it just locks into place easily, and then when you pull up on the handle, it releases the lock. So it's supposed to make it faster to be able to mount it and take it off. And I didn't like that system at all. I hated it. It was too, I didn't need it for one thing. It's like the old system and the new system, maybe the new system, you save 5 seconds or something when you're mounting and taking the bag off. And I don't really need, I'm never moving that fast, right? So what I did, I took the mounting mechanism from my old bags, which are these 2 hooks here. There's a hook here, and then this locking mechanism here. I removed these from my old bags, and I also removed the new system from this bag, took it off, and then I mounted the old system. But to do that, I had to drill holes and get up my own bolts and put things into place. So I basically had to rebuild the bag to make it useful to me. Yeah, kind of crazy. But yeah, that's again one of the things I do. This handle, I made that handle myself as well. That doesn't come with the bag. So it's got this soft cushion there, so that when you're carrying it around like a suitcase, it's really nice on your hand, nice and soft. And I had to sew that into place as well. So I do a lot of sewing, is what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's Planet Doug's Technology Corner. And I really want to get back to editing videos, so I'm going to wind things up real quickly here. And maybe I'll add a last pop culture corner at the end of today's behind the scenes, because I started watching a new TV show. I don't know where I came across the name. I'm always looking on the internet for listings of the best TV series from around the world, because quite often the shows that I find to be the most interesting are coming from other countries. They're not coming out of the United States or Canada. So I do a little bit of research to find out what TV shows are out there, and I came across this new one, new to me, called Deadloch. And yeah, it has things that I'm enjoying and things that I absolutely dislike at the same time. It's kind of a police procedural. The main characters are detectives and police officers in a very, very small town, and they are investigating murders. So that's the basic plot of the show. And when I started watching the first episode, I thought I knew what I was getting myself into, because it felt very familiar to me, and I was really looking forward to it, because what always happens in these shows, it's a little bit like Fargo, the original movie Fargo. You've got the female, I can't remember her name anymore, but the police officer, the main character of Fargo, and she is the only competent person in the whole town, right? She's very smart, she's very observant, she knows what she's doing, she's skilled at being a police officer, and almost everyone around her is a little bit of a buffoon. Like, she's miles ahead of everyone that she's dealing with, and there's nothing wrong with the people around her. They just seem to be different types of people, like her fellow police officers. They're nice people and they're doing the best they can at their job, but they just don't have her intelligence and her powers of observation, and they're just like so many steps behind her. And then her interaction with all these other people is quite interesting. So there's that, and then there's another thing that often happens is you have that character, like the one character in a town who's the only person that you like. See, she's the person you're supposed to be relating to, that you identify with her, and everyone around her is kind of a moron. But then someone will come from out of town. So then you get this dynamic of the local cop, and then because the murder is so serious, then a big city cop will come and become her partner, and then they will work together to solve the crime. And then you get this interesting interaction between the two characters, the small town cop and then the big city cop who comes in to assist, whether it's a woman here and a man comes in, or a man here and a woman comes in. There's always a lot of detective shows have that situation, small town cop and then a big city detective comes in, and then they work together to solve the case. And that seemed to be happening in this situation. But normally what happens is both characters are likable. They are completely different. The big city cop and the small town cop have different personalities, but they're both intelligent and good at their jobs, and they work together. There's friction there. There's all kinds of things happen between them, but they are both likable characters in the show. But in Deadloch, you've got the small town cop, this woman that is intelligent and observant, has common sense, is polite, is likable, is competent, is professional in the way she approaches her job. And then the big city detective who comes in to assist her is like one of the most horrible people I have ever met in a TV show. And every person in this town is unbearable. They are so annoying, so nuts. It's almost hard to describe. But the problem for me is that I think it's meant to be funny, like it's a black comedy in a way. And yet this outside detective who comes in to help, everything she does is supposed to be funny, but I find her to be so overbearing, so obnoxious, so ridiculous, so completely over the top that I despise her. And I think in the real world, nobody that awful, that incompetent, that blind could ever hold a job. Like, there's just no way she could come to a small town as a detective and keep her job. It's just no way. I mean, it's unbelievable that anybody could behave that way and get away with it. And our main character, the cop that I like, the intelligent one, she puts up with everyone. She bends over backwards, you know. There's something odd. There's something, they don't really give the history, but this small town, I guess one of the main features and part of the show, you know, the main dynamic of the show is that there was kind of a new mayor or new people moved into town, and they decided to turn the town from sort of a traditional, like, male-dominated place to a kind of a new age. And then all of these, like, lesbian women moved into this town, and it completely changed the character of the town in very, very strange ways. And the main cop, she has a female partner. So she has a wife, and her wife is awful. She's so annoying, so overbearing. She's as bad as the outside detective, right? And from my point of view, if I were the small town cop and I was dealing with a wife like that and an outside detective like that, it would take me 2 minutes to, okay, I've had enough of both of you. Like, just, you're out of my life. I'm not going to deal with you. You know, basically, the wife is getting divorced. If they were legally married, she's divorced, she's gone. I'm not dealing with her, tell you that. And this outside detective, I would just ignore her. You know, I would just completely ignore her. You know, I'm investigating the murder. I'm just going to wake up every morning and get in my car and drive around and do my investigation. And this insane, overbearing, horrible detective, she can go do whatever she wants to do, but I'm not working with her at all because they're so awful, these people. And I think in the show, we're still supposed to like them or something. We're supposed to see comedy in their behavior. And then our central police officer, the one we like, we're supposed to be willing to consider that she's going to want to compromise with all these people and work with them and not fight with them and not give up on them, you know. And it just doesn't make any sense to me at all, you know. In her, if I were in her shoes, like I said, and this outside detective came to town, you know, 2 minutes, I'm done with her. You know, I wouldn't give her the time of day, and I wouldn't work with her. And, you know, but anyway, our main police officer, as I said, is just way too nice, way too polite, puts up with way too much abusive behavior from all the people around her. And it's just really funny. I'm almost at the end of the season, actually, so I'm getting close to, I'm hoping, the big reveal. They're going to discover, like, solve the mystery of the murders, and I'm looking forward to that, because at this point I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea who the murderer could be. It's a bit of a complicated story in Deadloch, that's the name of the show. And yeah, but we'll see what's happening. So that is my take on Deadloch. It's worth watching. I think maybe I'll probably watch some of it again, to be honest, because the characters in the show are pretty complicated. There are a lot of characters, and I lost track of them. So later in the season, they're talking about, you know, this murder victim and that murder victim and how this person is related to that person. I couldn't really understand what they were talking about. because I lost track of all these characters. So I think if I go back and rewatch the first couple of episodes and it's like, oh, okay, that's who that was, it'll make more sense to me. So I may go back and give it a second watch, and maybe watching it a second time, I can get over my aversion to everybody in this town. They're all such horrible people that, you know, it's like one of the worst groups of people in a town I've ever seen in a TV show. As I said, if I were that police officer, I would just move. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to stay here. You know, okay, I'll solve this murder. I'm packing my bags and I'm out of here. You guys, it's your town now. You know, I'm not going to deal with this anyway. So, but who knows? Maybe I watch the show the second time. These people won't strike me quite as bad as they did on first viewing. But anyway, that is the show that I'm watching right now, Deadloch. And with that, I'm going to get back to editing, get back to sewing. I'll probably be sewing this while I watch the final episode of Deadloch later today. Get this all figured out. And with that, I'll shut down and the end of today's behind the scenes, and I'll see you in the next video.